Okay, so I guess my question is, or statement, is that I guess the older people are more anxious, and it makes sense. Because like you said before, we were nervous kids. But, I mean, we weren't nervous kids, but now we don't want to get up in front of people and talk.
Yeah. I would talk to a stop sign when I was a kid. It didn't matter. And I mean, I'm kind of still that way, but like, I guess you learn, like, we're talking about situational anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense to me now because, like, I will talk to anybody one-on-one, just whatever. Right. Doesn't matter. But if you put me, like, especially in, like, a room of people I don't know,
mm-hmm.
or people that I think, like, a group of people that I think are,
like, really watching me.
Yeah, not necessarily, like, smarter than me, but just people
right.
older than me that I consider, like, professional or anything. It bothers me to talk in front of them.
Definitely. Even, not want to say, like, my friends, but, like, people my age, you know?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And, like, I wasn't thinking about situational anxiety while we were reading it, but now that really does make sense because, like, in some situations, you are not nervous.
Right.
Like, I don't know. You're not nervous when somebody opens the door and says, "Hey, how are you?" But you walk into to give a presentation in a class and you're like about to fall out.
Like sweating bullets and about to pass out.
Absolutely.
And I guess that makes sense with the ELLs. If they have no clue what you're saying, they're going to be nervous.
Well, and the text also mentioned, like, they compare themselves to other learners, mm-hmm. and they compare their successes and, like, where they feel like they evaluate themselves comparing themselves to those other people.
Right.
And that's how they measure their success. And that's not really fair to them because they're comparing themselves to fluent English speakers,
right.
and then people that are further along in the process than they are. So I can see where that would get really discouraging really fast.
Oh, yeah. I have Heath not even an ELL, and I have one in my room right now that gets so nervous in front of everybody. But if it's just me and him, he's fine.
There are kids like that. Like, they'll talk all day long until, like, you call on them to read by themselves or something like that, and then they're done with it.
Right. And I guess they have it is nerve-wracking.
We watched that video on the practice and drill. You know, the Miss Marty and her mammoth teaching math. Her Maddie,
that was the name.
That was great. But that was coming off of the section where it talks about the MLAT and how it's an assessment that predicts the success of learners using the pattern drill method. And I had no clue what that was.
Right.
So I looked up that video, and you don't realize that, but we do use some of that.
Right.
Like sparingly as teachers.
But we don't really realize it either.
Yeah, I mean, when you're drilling kids in math, like you're doing those multiplication flashcards, you're still doing that.
Right. It's still like a form of it, I guess.
And it makes sense. So, I mean, I do it with vocabulary words too. Like
our sight words.
If it's something that they need to know, we'll say it till they get tired of saying it. But
right.
It helps those kids that are auditory learners pick up on it.
Right.
And that's something else that kind of stood out to me. I don't know what triggered me in the text specifically, but it kept talking about like the complexity of everything and how like students can be gifted in one area and not in others.
Right.
And I remember like from Jacksonville especially, everything in our bachelor's went back to multiple intelligences.
Right, and making sure you had things for all those different learning types. Like in your lessons and stuff.
And I mean, I can see that being a huge factor because I've got kids, like, if I'm writing something on the board and we're talking and we're putting all of our thoughts together on the board, that I can be writing an answer of some sort and I turn around and they've got it copied down there good, just listening to my voice.
Right.
But then you've got the kids that if they don't see it, they have no clue. And then you've got kids that none of that means anything if you don't